Welcome to the Human Conversation podcast with Jules White, the real dragon slayer, author and entrepreneur sales coach. Tune in weekly for human conversation about business and sales. Enjoy business expert interviews, educational episodes, and virtual cuppers with entrepreneur business owners. So grab yourself a cuppa and enjoy. Here is your host, Jules White.
So welcome everybody to the Human Conversation, and today I have got a fabulous lady with me who I had only just met. Actually, I've only just met this lady, and yet we have this wonderful synergy from our past lives, which we're going to talk about today. But what I do want to do is introduce you first and foremost to Diane Titterton. She is the founder of Time to Flourish, and she's all about mindset. Fantastic. Welcome, Diane, to the Human Conversation.
Thank you, Jules. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and to get the chance to chat to you again.
It is so nice for us to do this, so soon after just meeting. But our virtual cuppa, people who know me, they will know I have virtual cuppas with people so I can get to know them. And we had this wonderful virtual cuppa, and I found out so much about you. Isn't it amazing how we had these parallel lives that we never knew about, really?
Yeah, the similarities between it as well. And I think it was just as you were exiting your first business, I just started.
Yeah.
And I so wish I'd known you then, because you could have probably given me a huge amount of help and advice then.
I think we would have been incredibly aligned, but let's not keep our listeners in suspense for much longer. But let me start. I always like to start at the beginning with my guests on the Human Conversation. Yeah. So obviously I've just told everybody that what you really do right now is all around mindset, which is just fabulous work. And we all need that in our lives. But where did it start? So kind of, I know I left school when I was 16, only just 16 in the old days.
Yeah.
Where did it start for you? What was your career starting point?
Well, I left school and I had very clear views on what I wanted to do. So my dad had other views. My dad, whenever we went to careers fair, he used to take me around all the banking tables. He worked for the National Savings Bank and he thought a career in a bank is a really good career. So he used to steer me to Royal Bank of Scotland, or Marks and Spencer's. That was another one to get a retail career. But I had this idea that I wanted to study business and marketing. And I didn't really know what marketing was about, but I just thought it sounded quite good. So I left school and I found the exact course I wanted to do. In a sort of local, it was at a polytechnic at the time that I went, but it was a 5-year course because in Scotland all the sort of degree courses are 4 years. And then there was an opportunity to do a year working out in industry, which is something I really liked, the idea of going out and working. And even at that stage, I did have views that I wanted to own my own business, but I wasn't sure in what. So the course I chose was a general business course for the first year, and then you got to choose whether you wanted to do human resources, marketing, or finance. So I thought that gave me the options at the beginning, and then I could choose where I wanted to specialise. And I did go into marketing, and I did my year out with a marketing consultancy helping small businesses. And I think that's where my love of small business came from, because I worked with, it must have been about 15 different companies doing all their marketing. And I felt in a way that I was cheating a bit, because it just seemed like common sense to me, a lot of what we were doing. And I liked that, because I used to have to work quite hard at things like chemistry and maths. So finding something that seemed like common sense that I loved doing as well was this huge gift. Yeah. So I left my course and did a graduate training programme at Scottish Power in their business marketing department. From there, I ended up going out and working in America for 6 months, doing a placement out there. They'd just taken over a company in America. So I went out there and worked over there doing, it was sort of HR things, oddly enough, that I ended up doing out there. And that was the west coast of America. It was a great experience, but as much as I loved travelling and I love holidays, and it was a great opportunity to travel all up and down the west coast of America, at the end of it, I got the opportunity to stay out there for longer, but it just felt a bit too far away, and I missed the European culture. And I was at a stage, I was engaged, we were looking at getting married and starting having a family. So that then brought us back to the UK and down into England at that stage, because my husband got offered a job. So we ended up relocating down to the Midlands from Scotland, and I left my sort of secure job in Scottish Power, which opened up more opportunities then, because I was starting again, and I started doing some consultancy, some contracting again for local small businesses. And I carried that on a bit while I had children, but I had my 2 children really close together. And what I found though was, because I didn't have my family around, it was really difficult to do any kind of contracting or consulting, because you didn't have the regular hours, so you couldn't really commit to the childcare. So I ended up, I didn't do a lot of work for 2 years, and then I decided that to get back into it, I'd go and become a mentor for the Prince's Trust, mentoring other small businesses. And that helped me. It helped me get foot back in the door. It helped me remember that I hadn't actually forgotten everything, and that although I was a mother, I did still have a brain as well, and I could contribute to wider society. And
I want to just go back just a little bit. First, I want to tell you that my first job was in the bank. I worked, yeah.
My dad would have been very proud.
Exactly. And I needed to make sure you knew that. I worked for NatWest Bank for 5 years when I first came out of school. So that was my first proper job. The other thing I wanted to ask you about was, you say that you became a mentor for the Prince's Trust. For some reason, I'm sitting thinking, well, that couldn't have been easy to do. Was it just, did you apply? Was it just a job advert that you saw? How did you get involved in something like that?
It was one of those sort of serendipitous moments. I was sitting watching it was a Prince's Trust gala that was on TV, and then they did a bit at the end about the Prince's Trust and the different things that you can do within the Prince's Trust, and I thought, oh, that sounds good, I'm going to give them a call. So the next day I phoned them up and told them a bit about myself, and they said, yeah, they showed me how to apply, and I went in and had an interview, and yeah, it was actually as easy as that. I think it was just being in the right time in the right place, and they had someone lined up almost immediately for me to go and start mentoring.
I love that. And I'm just kind of thinking, because I know sort of how your story progresses, and I know the listeners don't yet. I'm gonna hold my tongue. But it's really beautifully connected actually to the next part of your story, isn't it?
Yes.
So let's go a little bit further. You were doing the mentoring at the Prince's Trust.
Yes, I was
How long did you do that for?
I did that for about 10 years, all in all. Yeah, okay. Maybe so. And actually, the girl that I mentored latterly, I'm still in contact with her, although her sort of official mentoring is finished, and I'm now part of her business, and we're looking at launching a business in October, which is another pregnancy and child-related business.
Which brings us beautifully onto the subject in hand. So there I am chatting to Diane, listeners, in my virtual cuppa, and we're talking about Truly Madly Baby. And she then tells me about her business that she ran. Now, what year did you start your business, Diane?
2008, which was the year we started.
Yeah, which was the year I lost my business. So you're right. As soon as I finished my business, you started yours.
Yeah.
But the connection was what your business was. So tell us about, well, hang on. First of all, how did you come to start your own business from being this mentor? What changed?
I think it was being the mentor and actually helping other businesses that gave me the confidence that I could actually do it. Because as I was helping them, and also as well, I think I felt a little bit of envy for these people that were actually out doing it. And there was something in me that at that stage was holding back and standing in the sidelines, but that just gave me the push that I thought I could do it. And the company I was helping at that time, they got investment from Peter Jones, from Dragon's Den.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
How amazing is this?
And ended up on the programme Tycoon that Peter Jones was doing at the time. And I remember watching it and thinking, I've got to give this a go. It doesn't matter if it doesn't work. And because I think my children were going to school at that stage, so I knew I was going to have more time. So I decided, yeah, I'm going to start a business. And it was as crazy as that. That's it, I'm starting a business. And I thought, right, what am I going to do? So I had a friend out in Hong Kong. And so I spoke to her and said, do you fancy looking to see if we can find something together? And she said, yeah, there's this massive import-export fair in China. It's sort of 3 hours by train from Hong Kong. Come out and we'll go to that. So we went out and we had a wander around that for the day.
Hang on. So we went out and wandered around that for the day. This is listeners. This is Diane going to Hong Kong, 3-hour train to China. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And then wandering around for the day. Diane, you make it just sound like you went down the road. You know?
Well, any excuse for a holiday and to travel, really.
Sorry, I interrupted you then. I'm so sorry.
It's strange. I think all my life I seem to have come across things and just sort of thought, let's do it. Because I think if I think about something for too long, I won't do it. So actually the things that I have achieved and done, it's because I've just sort of listened to my heart and gone with what felt right and gone out and done it. As it happened, we didn't find anything in the Chinese import-export fair because it was so disappointing. Every single product that was there was already in all the shops over here. Yeah. And it was full of, you could see everyone with their lanyards, and they were from big department stores. And there was nothing innovative, there was nothing exciting, nothing different. So we kind of played around with a business plan to do a children's jewellery, silver jewellery, and looked at setting it up as a business model, the sort of home party idea, which will be familiar to you as well.
Yes.
so we did the business plan for that, but we couldn't quite see, it didn't feel right, it just didn't feel right. And at that stage then, another sort of coincidence, I was at a dinner party through my husband's work and was chatting to a lady who I knew sort of vaguely, I'd met her a couple of times, and she was telling me that her son had some issues potty training. And without going into too much detail, he was having wetting and soiling issues. And she'd taken him to the health visitor. And the health visitor told her that she had to fundamentally get him out of nappies. And she said, there's no way I'm getting him out of nappies unless there's another product I can put him in, because he was needing if he was in pants, he'd need a change of pants 16 times a day. And that's just not pleasant. Mums don't get paid enough for that. So she decided that she was going to, she searched for the product online, couldn't find it. So started cutting up women's sanitary towels at the kitchen table. And this had all happened like the day before I was sitting having dinner with her. And so she said, I was telling her that what I was doing, and she said, do you fancy seeing if we can make this work? So we decided at that stage we were going to give it 3 months. And at the end of 3 months, we decide whether or not we were going to carry on with it. So the first thing we did was we decided we were going to patent it. And we had Judith done some sort of cutouts of things, so we took some drawings and just did our own patent application. We had no money for lawyers, no real idea how we were going about this, but we thought, well, if we do this, at least we're protected. And so we did our patent application, got that in, and then we managed to get a little bit of help. It was British Library where they had an IP specialist there. So we went up and met her, and she helped us then write a proper patent. And we just took it from there. We did our 3 months. Thought, yeah, actually there's legs in this. Let's give it a go, and carried on and started developing the product, researching the market, and pretty quickly realised we were going to need investment as well, because of it couldn't be manufactured in the UK, it could only be manufactured abroad. So with the quantities we were talking about, we knew that we were going to need to get investment, which is, as you know, very time consuming. So that took up quite a bit of time. But from there, we grew the business. We managed to get the product developed, managed to get some grant funding, which helped us then develop prototypes. We found a manufacturer again through our own network. So much of what we've done has been through our own network, or just serendipitously meeting the right person at the right time. So we met our manufacturer, and they said they'd make prototypes for us. And they also had contacts with all the buyers. So before we knew it, we were in pitching. Asda was the first person that we went and pitched to, and we got that straight away. And got a nice big order from them.
Right. So Diane, you know, I'm listening to this. Oh gosh, I'm listening to this and I'm just thinking, oh my goodness, this is so amazing, because not only the progress that you're making and the things that you're just pushing through and getting done, you know, that's really apparent in all the things you've just told me. But anyone who runs a business knows what this stuff takes.
Yeah.
You know? And especially when you've got a physical product.
Yeah, definitely.
I really have never run a business where I've developed my own product. I had a business where I picked products I liked and created a range of products, but I never had to manufacture them. I never had to patent them. I never had to think about minimum quantities, who was going to make them, cost prices, markups, wholesale. You know, and I know so much about all of that now because I've learned. But it's just the way you reel it off. So we got a patent, then we met this, and it just feels like there's a lot more to this than just the things you did. There's actually the whole you to this, Diane.
I think it was pushing through. I think the early stages, it would have been so easy to give up.
Yes, exactly.
The idea was great. And I love planning. I love planning. So right at the beginning, I loved having the business plan, the marketing plan, working out what we were going to do with the packaging. We had that very well formed, but the biggest hurdle was finding someone that would manufacture. And I think we were selling all the time. We had to convince everyone that this was a great idea, that it was going to work. So I think that was possibly the thing that got us through. Somehow we managed to convince everyone that we had what it took.
But that's belief. That's belief, and that comes from quite deep inside, I think, because I was the same when I started Truly Madly Baby, because I wanted to buy certain products. It was a bit different. I wanted to buy minimum quantities, so I wasn't holding huge stock.
Yeah.
I also wanted to buy with longer credit terms, you know, so that I could sell them and then pay for them, you know. So I wanted all of those lovely situations.
Yeah.
And I had to go to people and say, please trust me. And they'd be like, but you're new, you need to pay cash up. But please trust me, because I'm going to grow this business, you know. And actually the suppliers that really trusted me and believed me were the ones that actually had huge relationships with me financially. I spent lots of money with them. And so it paid out for them at the end. But they trusted me massively at the beginning. And I think it's all about, we say convincing. I'm not sure I love that word that much, because I always feel like that's, but it is about trying to convince people. But when you're passionate and you believe in something, it just feels different to somebody saying, oh, please give me some extra. This is real deep stuff, isn't it? Do you not think?
Yes. Well, I think you know your why then. And when you know your why, you're prepared to go the extra mile, and you can't give in. And in some ways, I find that that's a bit of a weakness for me now, that I can't give in.
I know, I'm the same.
That I need to let go of. It's like, let it go. Just let it go. And I'm like, no, I can make this work. You said no, you meant not yet. I'll convince you I'm right.
A woman after my own heart, I think. So tell us a bit more about the story. You've obviously done so much. You've brought this product to market. So, you're talking to Asda.
Yeah,
you know, so there's another thing.
Yeah. Well, they were the first to take it, and actually they were brilliant with us. They were really good. We managed to get all the major supermarkets at one stage or another. Tesco were the hardest to crack. And unfortunately, we cracked Tesco, and that was had a massive positive impact on the business in terms of scale. But then that was at the time when they were having their issues and they were cutting back all their product lines, because they were finding, I think, a bit of a paradox of choice. They had too much choice for people that weren't buying, and they were looking at Aldi's and Lidl. So at that stage, I think it was just overnight, they decided they were going to cut their product lines by a third. And we were in the aisle with Pampers and Huggies, so you can guess which third they decided to cut. And that was really unfortunate, because we just, on the back of having Tesco, we'd managed to get investments to a TV campaign. So the TV campaign was about to go live. In fact, it went live just as they were delisting us from their stores.
Oh, gosh.
And the sales, the impact of that was huge. That campaign was amazing. It did really well. It was a 30-second advert. It did so well. It did, and the plus side, it cleared all the stock out of their stores. So it meant we didn't need to buy any stock back. But once we lost that listing, we didn't have enough distribution to be able to rerun the TV campaign because we couldn't get enough sales from it. So it was one of those, and that was the sort of the start of the hurdles of scale. We couldn't quite get the scale. We kept trying even after we were delisted. We thought, give it a year and we can get back into Tesco, but we couldn't. So the sales we had in the UK, they weren't enough to get us profitable. So we knew we had to expand out. So we tried, because there's two uses for this product. It can be used for general potty training and also for children that have got wetting and soiling issues. So we thought, but that's quite a niche market.
Yeah.
But we had some good connections in that, and they're long-term users. So we looked at, could we go abroad with that? But trying to get into medical companies abroad, that was proving very difficult. So we thought we really need to crack the potty training market in another country. And we did what so many other companies do, because it looks so appealing, and we went to the States. And so we went out, and once again, we got on a plane. We went out, and we went and we pitched to Toys R Us out there. We'd found an account manager who helped us get an appointment with Toys R Us. So we went to New York and pitched it to Toys R Us. They were really interested, really keen on it. And we'd always thought the American market was a really great market for it, because they're very product orientated and solution orientated. And the issue we had in the UK is some people were a little bit stiff upper lip and sort of, we don't put sanitary towels in our children's pants, not in boys' pants anyway. Yeah. So we did get a little bit of backlash from that, which we would have got over, I'm sure, because that's an education process and it just takes time. But that was, I remember we put something in Net Mums, and we got slated for putting children's in sanitary pads.
So just right, I'd like to connect a mindset piece to this.
Yeah.
Because isn't this a fixed mindset?
Definitely.
If ever you heard of one?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And it was mums as well, because I thought maybe it's dads, but it was mums saying, no, my boy's not wearing that. And you think, well, we've got a solution here, because it accelerated potty training. And the big issue just now is that the big nappy companies are making nappies bigger and bigger, because they want to keep children in nappies as long as possible, and they didn't like us at all. No. And when we went to Boots told us they weren't allowed to list us because it might upset
the powers. Yeah, the powers.
And they spend a lot of money on advertising.
Yeah,
which of course they do.
Yeah.
So we'd always thought that going to the States would be good. So we went there, pitched Toys R Us, and they put us in all their stores. They said they'd take us in all their stores throughout the whole of the US. So that was slightly daunting, but we then had to set up, because a lot of the systems were quite antiquated. They couldn't pay us internationally. They could only pay us by check and things, unless we had an American business set up. So we then had to go through a huge amount of legals to set up an American company, make sure that we were filling in all the right forms. We had an American bank account. So it took us about 6 months to get all the sort of paperwork, and it cost a huge amount of money. We got all our stock. We got stock remade in China and then shipped out to the States. We went through all the sort of safety, got all the safety documentation that we needed, and went through all that testing. Got it all to warehouse in the States, got it out to the stores and Toys R Us, and 3 weeks later they went bust.
Oh.
So that was it.
Diane,
and
I mean, my stomach just dropped then, because although I knew that's what you were going to say, because we've had our virtual cuppa, I felt like it was like I'd gone back in time to the moment I lost my business. And I think although it's different circumstances, it's that feeling of the loss. It was like a grief when I lost.
It was so disappointing. I think when you put so much in.
Yeah, it's raw, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's really raw.
Yeah. And it feels a bit like bad luck. And on one hand, I think there's no place for bad luck in business, and the more you try, the luckier you get. But I felt between Tesco and the UK, and then I always said to my business partner, it's a bit like the law of unattraction. It was like the harder we push, the further away it goes.
So let's just quickly talk about that moment, because I think, you know, this is the interesting part of human conversation for me, is me sort of, I know how I felt. And what did it mean to you after all of that hard work? I mean, I'm listening to all the things you did. I know how hard all of that was, you know.
I think it's a feeling of, well, disappointment. It's a feeling of, I think it was our investors by that stage had put a lot of money in the business. So it's the responsibility to pay back that money. I think that was really tough.
Yeah.
And I guess because you can't help but take it personally and feel that you've let yourself down, or you've done something, you should have seen it, or
but you
made a mistake.
You couldn't have seen that. Like, who would have said that Toys R Us would have gone out of business? Everybody was as shocked as the next person when that news came, completely. Weren't they?
Yeah, so at the time we really tried to pick it back up, and we found another distributor on the east coast of the States, and we were looking at doing a deal with them to distribute it. And we were going to just do the East Coast initially. They had a few leads with it. And we went out, got on another plane, went back out and had some meetings with them about it. And we nearly did the deal, but the trouble was the stakes had just suddenly got very higher, because if we were trying to launch in across multiple smaller retailers, we were going to need a huge marketing budget. And there was a huge amount of risk to our investors. And that was the first time where I actually thought, if this was my money, I'm not quite sure I would invest it. And it was at that stage it didn't feel right then to be doing it. So we couldn't make the numbers work anyway. We couldn't get the reward for the risk that we felt we were going to do. And the company we were dealing with were big on taking the upside, but weren't quite so keen on sharing any of the risk. So we never quite got that deal off the table. We tried to sell a bit through Amazon ourselves, but we couldn't get the volume, and the costs of just maintaining a US company were too high. So instead we started looking at different ways that we could expand out, and we started a potty training website, which was more potty training, less about the product, but the idea being the more we can educate people on potty training, if we can become the go-to for that, then we can weave the product in and make it normalised and sort of potty training. So we started doing that. We got really good results from that. We had a sort of potty training live, we called it, that we ran every year, where we had it was about 1,000 parents potty training with us over 8 weeks, and we were sort of helping them through the different steps. We'd written a book as well. We published a book called How to Potty Train, but we didn't get huge sales out of that. So we were trying lots of different things, and we started a children's online shop called Toddler Barn with our product, and then some other things as well. So we had various things going on, but again, we couldn't get the scale. I think as well, we'd left it almost too late, because by that stage the business had a huge amount of debt. So I think our investors were they were getting a bit nervous about it, that they weren't going to see the return. We were nervous they weren't going to see the return, and we were nervous that they were having to keep putting more money in, and that was the thing that made me feel uncomfortable, that every month we were having to go back to them and ask for more money to keep the business afloat. So in the end, we decided, well, the investors withdrew the funding, and we sold the Dry Like Me, the sort of the core business. We sold that to the manufacturing distributor, and they have carried it on. I don't know if they will in the longer term, but they certainly, they said that they carry on with the stock. Because that was the other thing that I thought, we used to get a lot of people contacting us, particularly with children that had wetting and soiling issues, saying what a life changer this product was, how it helped. It meant the children could go to school in their own pants. They didn't need to wear nappies to school. So it was a product that was doing a lot of good. So I was really pleased that it was going to continue. And hope it does continue in the longer term.
What year was it that this kind of all ended then? How long did the business run for?
It was 2019, so it was last May.
Wow.
Yeah, that was
really recent then, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so that's sort of a year
Diane.
that we've been out of it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I feel I learned a huge amount. It was like doing an MBA in business. It was a fantastic experience. We got to see some amazing places, meet some really interesting people. So I have no regrets at all, other than that we couldn't pay back the investment.
Yeah.
I think that's really the only one. But
Diane, I'm listening to you. I bet the listeners are thinking, "My God, this woman! You're just so positive." It's like so. Well, it was like doing an MBA, and it's like and so all the positive things that you got out of it, and all the learning that you had out of it. You're amazing. You're amazing because I talk about bounce back ability. Because somebody once said to me, "Oh, you've got bounce back ability." I'm thinking, I haven't got it, but this woman has. Amazing, inspirational story. And you are, because of your whole attitude to this. And I think this really brings me nicely onto what you're now doing. If I can be so bold, because I certainly don't want the whole human conversation to be just about that. Although it's fascinating, it's been wonderful and inspiring. I want to talk about your bounce back ability. And actually, even though it was only, a year ago that this all kind of ended, what are you doing now?
Okay, so I have a new business now.
Well, I'm not surprised.
I think this is the keeper. I do believe this is the business I will be doing on the day I die, and I will still be doing it. Yeah. So a hobby of mine since 1999, when I was pregnant, I went along and did antenatal yoga, and a big part of that was all about mindset, mindfulness, preparing for the birth, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I carried on doing mindfulness and meditation after the children were born to help me cope with not getting enough sleep and just general demands of toddlers and bigger children. And I still use it to this day with teenagers. And so I loved the sort of the mindfulness and mindset and I think that's why I've managed to be so positive, take the learning from things, moving on from acceptance, and then moving on. So a lot of it was about teaching myself, I think, the tools to be able to cope with being in business. And what I find from doing my mentoring with the Prince's Trust, a lot of the businesses I was speaking to, I wasn't just telling them about what I'd done in business and advising them on the business side, but also I was coaching them in their mindset, because every decision they make is through the filter of their own mind. And very often the things that were holding them back, it wasn't that they didn't know their core business. They knew that really well. It was the fear, it was the doubt, it was the imposter syndrome, it was the procrastination, it was all these things that were holding them back, which are all things that I have to say I do still suffer from in my existing business.
We all do. We all do, honestly.
And I think that's a big learning for people as well, that we do. When you look at people, I remember when I was younger and I first started work, I used to look at these really accomplished people in their 40s and think, wow, I can't wait till I get to that stage when I'll know everything and I'll be so confident and I'll be able to make decisions and I won't doubt myself. And I got there and was like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's always there. It might not be there quite in the abundance it is when you're younger, but it's definitely there. And I think what we do over time, as you know, is we just develop tools and ways to deal with it better, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
That doesn't mean to say it goes away forever, because I think it's just a natural thing. It's actually a human nature thing, I think.
It is.
And I always feel it's important to say about fear that it's our ally and it's trying to protect us, because I feel like that gives me a better relationship with it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that's true. I think it is. Yeah. It is just the sort of small self saying, oh, you better be careful, stay in your comfort zone. If you go out of your comfort zone, bad things can happen. You can get eaten by lions.
Yeah, can you imagine like our fear, me and you, what it must have been saying over the years to us? It must have been screaming.
Get back, go home.
What the hell are you doing?
Don't step in another plane.
Yeah, exactly. So you're working now. So are you working with pregnant women, or are you?
No, I tend to be business people. So from working with people through the Prince's Trust, I recognised that in business there was a real need for this amongst professional people, and I'm working now with 10, well, it's all ages. I'm surprised actually how young some of the people are, but I think there's a huge amount of pressure now on younger people, because things like they have to be available almost 24 hours a day. There's emails when you go home. So I think the sort of pressures on them, they feel a lot of the pressures, and burnout seems to be getting to people a lot younger. So I help people, I help, the aim of this business is to help people achieve more and worry less and break out of their shell. And that's a sort of personal passion of mine, that I see so many people that are following the path that they think they should be following.
Yes.
Doing all the things, being the good girls. So good girls, right from when they're at school, they're encouraged, be quiet. She's a nice, quiet girl. Yeah, she does what she's told. And then, yes, they do the right thing. And then I think even just as mothers, you're always putting other people first. So you get into this real mindset of, I don't matter so much. And so my passion is to help all the good girls do what they want to do.
I love that. Now, so are you only working with women? Is that specific for
No,
you? Is
no.
that your preference? Or
No, not really. It tends to be more women that I do work with, but I have had some men as well. In the group courses, I had some men who actually have the same issues.
yes.
Exactly the same. They struggle with the fear of the imposter syndrome, but I think they hide it more.
Yeah.
And so I have had a couple of two men. I was a group of 12, and I had two men within the group. So that tends to be the sort of the ratio.
But isn't it interesting what you said about, we do what we should do. We do what we're told we should do. But I think it's the same for men. And maybe that's changing, and I hope it is, because I've got a beautiful son who's coming up to 16, and I want him to have this whole, sort of world at his feet where he can just be him and not have to be a certain type of person. But I think men traditionally have been told, well, you're the head of the family, or you're the strong one, or you don't cry, and men don't cry, and so all of those things have caused men to actually internalize stuff.
I think so.
We don't want them to internalize. Certainly you and I don't, knowing the things that we've learned. So I think I've had more men work with me through the pandemic than I've ever had, which has been glorious. I've loved it. And I think maybe you're going to see the same, where maybe some more men do come forward.
Yeah, I think so. And actually mindfulness is really good for men in the way that it's not talking therapy. It's not like going to a therapist. They don't need to tell me a lot of the things that we end up going through. It's nice if they do want to share it, but actually it's about going inside, and it's about learning to listen to what's going on inside you, and accept and recognise a lot of the emotions. Because I think you're right when you say men have been sort of brought up in a certain way, we've got to be a certain way, we can't show emotion, but a lot of the time they won't even show it to themselves.
No.
And they're not even recognising it. So it's great for men. You can get some really great results with men, because they don't need to just chat about it. They can just come to it in their own time.
Yeah.
So because I've come from a business background as well, a lot of the work that I end up doing, I weave in quite a lot of sort of frameworks and work of Stephen Covey and a lot of the coaches, the sort of business coaches. And that always, when I tell the men that I've got a framework for them, they get quite excited.
Yeah, a bit of structure to it as well. Yeah, no, that's awesome. So just quickly, in terms of like your business then, how do you work with people? How's it structured?
At the moment, it tends to be I'm doing some one-to-ones with people. So that's obviously all through Zoom at the moment, but that works well, because I've got clients just now. I've got one that's on the other side of the country, and I've got one that's in America. So it works really well that you can get people further afield, and Zoom works well for this thing again, for mindfulness, because you can be in your own safe environment. And still get the progress. So I tend to do one-to-ones, and I've just launched an online course that's just going up on my website just now. I'm just redoing on my website, and that's all about finding stillness in chaos. So that has been written specifically for COVID and 2020, the year of change and uncertainty.
I think all too often, what we do is we deal with stuff when it's actually not too late necessarily, but when it started to do the damage, we say, we probably better do something about this now then. You know, and I'm guilty. I'm terribly, terribly guilty of not having enough me time. I work. I love my work.
Exactly.
It doesn't
that makes
help.
It harder. Yes, exactly.
Because I enjoy it, but I'm very aware that I don't stop to have a walk, and I don't stop to. So I'm trying really hard to filter that into my days now and my routine.
And it's not self-indulgent. It's so important to do that for our health. In the same way that we don't think going to the gym self-indulgent. If we go and run for half an hour in the gym, I think we need to change our mindset towards self-care and looking after our mental well-being and see it as wellness. It's not weakness to go and work in this area, but it is about building resilience so that we can cope with all the hard things that come up in all our lives.
I wonder if just some of the things in pandemic have urged some of us to change how we think about life and just how we live our lives. And I think we took a lot for granted. And I hope we come out the other side not taking so much for granted, and perhaps just being even more, maybe leading a simpler life, but a more fulfilling life, if that makes sense. You know?
And understanding our priorities. So if we choose that we want to work 14 hours a day, then that's great, so long as you're doing some self-care in amongst it. But if you don't, and you want a change in career, or you want to do something, then I think this has actually helped a lot of people, because it has forced us all to slow down, that's for sure.
I'm absolutely sure there's got to be a part 2 to this podcast, actually, the more I think about it, because we've covered so much amazing ground together. I want to make sure everybody can connect with you, because I know they'll want to. Where's the best place to find you? Where do you hang out?
So I do quite a lot on LinkedIn and Instagram. I'm trying to be better at Instagram and Facebook. But LinkedIn tends to be where I'm most active just now, and I'm starting a YouTube channel after watching Clarice at the weekend.
So just for the listeners, Clarice is a lady who I've known for some time, and she came into my membership. So a little plug there for my membership. And Diane's a member in my membership, which is, I love that, Diane, that you're already in there. Super to have you. And it's all based around a high street. That's kind of the whole kind of, I suppose the exciting bit about it is everything's a shop, a different type of shop for you to connect, learn and belong.
I think it's lovely.
It's really simple, isn't it? But also, I just love being in there doing stuff and adding bits and bobs. And part of it is actually these guest experts who come in, and Clarice came in and did this session all about YouTube, didn't she, Diane?
Yeah, it was great. It was really helpful.
And it was really helpful. And it was just those really simple things that are those question marks in when you're starting to do something. Well, should I do it like this? And how should I set it up? And so it was massively helpful, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was great.
I think Clarice was on the podcast. I've got to guess this, episode 23, I think.
Right.
So this will be, I think you're going to be about 70 something this episode, Diane.
Yeah,
so she was on some time back. But she's super, super clever lady. So I'm so glad you enjoyed that. But YouTube, oh my goodness, YouTube's the way to go, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, I think it's massive. It's an SEO, and to be able to be found and the links up with your website. So I'm loving the membership. I'm really pleased that I've joined it, because what I found doing this business, because for all in my last business, we did a huge amount of selling. We were selling all the time. But there was always a product in focus, and actually I had a business partner as well, so in some ways it was easier because there was 2 of us. I did feel when I started my business now, it's only me, so I felt very much in the spotlight, and not in a good way, and and also because there's not a product, so I felt that all the attention was on me, whereas before we could talk about the product, and that has actually been quite a big barrier to me. Now I have recognised I have procrastinated a lot because I have been reluctant to sell myself, because I think it just sounds like I'm just saying, am I amazing, and what if I'm not, which I know I am. I know my stuff really well, but I just don't like saying that. telling people. It just makes me feel a bit like, oh.
Yeah, and I think, one of the big things I do with clients who don't have a product, because I work with both, which I love. Again, I'm so fortunate. Yeah. But the guys who don't have a product, what we do is we productize their offering. Yeah. So we make it feel like a product. Yes. And it's a massive shift mindset-wise, because you'll know all about this anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a huge shift to suddenly actually be selling a product, even though you're the product actually. You're selling them a product because it's a program or it's a course or it's a network or a membership. And whilst actually that's driven by you as the product, it's a product separate almost.
Yeah, I love that. Actually, that's really clever, because already I just think, oh yes, I just need to focus on my product. That's fine. That's they become an entity in themselves. No, I love that. That's a great tip.
So there's a tiny bit of sales coaching right there live on the podcast. Look, but honestly, it's all these little tiny things. A lot of it, as you said, and as we've said in this episode, is about mindset and how we approach things and that attitude and that can-do attitude that you have.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, it's just phenomenal. I've loved listening to your story, which I hadn't had in such detail. So it's been amazing. Before we finish, because I don't want to, because I always say that because I don't ever want to, I can talk for England. What's your parting thoughts or tips for?
Well, I'd say don't be afraid of failure. Just do it. I think if people are listening to this, there's a reason they're listening. There's something inside them that has some spark of desire to be in business, to work in business. So take the first step today. Don't wait, and don't worry about having it all planned out or feeling that you need to know the answer and what you're going to be doing in 6 months' time. We always took the view, try it for 3 months and then reassess. But the important thing is taking the action, because I think so many people, and again, I'm guilty of this, feel it's got to be perfect before you take action. But just do it, just try it and see it. And if it doesn't work out, it'll be okay. Something else could come out of it. Or that learning from what you're doing now could then feed into something else in future. You never know. I don't think there's ever a wasted conversation, meeting, business idea or anything. It's all relevant, and you can get ideas and nuggets of gold in every single one of them.
Diane, what an amazing way to finish this fabulous podcast. I love that.
It's been great. It's been lovely. I love chatting to you. I could chat to you all day.
What a great human conversation. Thank you so much for your time. And I know that we're going to talk even more. You're in the membership. We're going to chat. We'll have virtual cuppas and whatever, such synergy, such an amazing lady. If you learn nothing else about yourself in this podcast, Diane, you need to understand how inspirational you are.
Oh, thank you.
Because there's a lot of get up and go there that many people will be really, really inspired by.
Yeah, and I hope they do. Yeah. That's what it's all about.
It is, yeah. So thank you. Thank you for joining me.
No pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Listeners, what an amazing conversation. I always feel really energized when I've had my human conversations with my guests. But thank you for listening, because without you as listeners, we wouldn't have a podcast. And if you want to make sure you subscribe and you like, please do, whatever platform you listen on. We are on SoundCloud, Stitcher, we're on Apple Podcasts, and we're on Spotify. And of course, you can also see us and watch us on YouTube. So thank you for listening, and join us again the next time on The Human Conversation. Ta-ta for now.
You've just been listening to the Human Conversation podcast with Jules White. To find out more about the other work that Jules does, please visit her website, www.liveitloveitsellit.co.uk. And if you enjoyed the podcast, then please do leave a rating and review on the platform you use to enjoy her show. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.